In a world where appearances often dictate first impressions, stories of injustice and prejudice hit close to home. Picture this: an elite car dealership in Beverly Hills, California, a playground for the rich and famous. A woman steps in, dressed in humble clothes, only to be rudely dismissed by a smug salesperson who thinks she doesn't belong. But an hour later, she returns with her husband, and the truth unfolds in a way that'll leave you stunned. Subscribe if you believe you can't judge someone by their clothes. Like if you respect authenticity. Buckle up, this story will tug at your heartstrings and keep you hooked until the very end. The Prestige Motors dealership in Beverly Hills was a shrine to extravagance. Sunlight streamed through towering glass walls, bouncing off the glossy curves of Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and Teslas. The marble floors gleamed under chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes. This wasn't just a showroom, it was a status symbol, a place where Hollywood stars and Silicon Valley tycoons came to play. The air buzzed with wealth, from the crisp suits of the staff to the faint hum of engines worth six figures. Into this world stepped Sarah. She was a breath of normalcy in a sea of excess, a plain white t-shirt, faded jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. Her ponytail swung gently as she moved, her makeup-free face glowing with quiet curiosity. She didn't carry a designer bag or flash a Rolex, but her eyes lit up as she traced the sleek lines of a black sports car, a $150,000 masterpiece parked like a crown jewel in the center of the showroom. Michael, a slick-haired salesperson in a tailored navy suit, clocked her the moment she walked in. He'd been at Prestige Motors long enough to think he could smell money or the lack of it. To him, Sarah was a smudge on the dealership's polished image. He watched her linger by the sports car, her fingers hovering just above the hood, not daring to touch. Time to clean house, he thought, striding over with a smirk. "Excuse me," he said, his voice a blade wrapped in silk. "This isn't a thrift store clearance." Sarah blinked, caught off guard. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "I was just wondering about the price of this car." Michael didn't let her finish. "Seriously? Our cars start at $100,000. I think you've wandered into the wrong place." His eyes raked over her outfit, jeans, sneakers, that cheap t-shirt, with a sneer that said you don't belong. He'd crept up Sarah's neck, but she held her ground. "I understand, but I'd still like to." "No, buts," he snapped, cutting her off again. He pointed to the door like she was a stray dog. "Please leave. This isn't the place for someone like you." The words stung like a whip. Around them, heads turned, some customers smirked, others whispered behind manicured hands. Sarah's chest tightened, humiliation burning in her throat. She pressed her lips into a thin line, gave a small nod, and walked out. Each step echoed with the weight of his judgment, but as she hit the sidewalk, she squared her shoulders. "They'll see," she thought, disappearing into the Beverly Hills haze. An hour later, a black SUV rolled up to Prestige Motors, its tinted windows glinting like a predator's eyes. The driver's door swung open, and out stepped David, a man who looked like he'd walked off the cover of GQ. His charcoal suit hugged his frame, every stitch screaming money and power. He was a tech mogul, a name you'd find in Forbes or on a billboard in Silicon Valley. And beside him, Sarah. Same t-shirt, same jeans, same sneakers, but now her quiet strength shone brighter, framed by her husband's unshakable confidence. David's arms slid around her shoulders, a silent promise of protection. Together, they marched back into the dealership, and the room froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. Staff exchanged wide-eyed looks. One even whispered, "Wait, isn't that David Carter?" Michael, still loitering near the sports car, felt his stomach drop. That woman he'd kicked out? She was back, and with him. David's eyes locked onto Michael, cold and unyielding. He didn't raise his voice, but every word landed like a hammer. "You treated my wife poorly today." Michael's mouth went dry. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize. Didn't realize? David's brow lifted, his tone slicing through the excuse. We were here to buy 3 cars for my company, a $500,000 deal. But not anymore. You just flushed that down the drain. The air thickened with tension. Michael's face paled, his earlier swagger crumbling. But I didn't know. Didn't know? David's voice sharpened, each syllable a dagger. Does it matter? You judged her based on her clothes without even asking her name. That's not just rude, it's pathetic. Sarah stood tall beside him, her gaze steady but soft. She didn't gloat or smirk, she didn't need to. The truth was her victory. Still, a flicker of sadness crossed her face. She'd wanted to browse, to dream about those cars, and he'd stolen that from her with his cruelty. Michael grasped at straws, his voice shaking. I can offer a discount. David laughed, a short, bitter sound. A discount? This isn't about money. It's about respect. And you showed none. The showroom was a graveyard of silence. Michael stood there, gutted, as David's words sank in. The other staff watched, some shaking their heads, others avoiding his gaze. An older salesman, Victor, leaned against a wall and muttered, "Kids got a lot to learn." David turned to Sarah, his expression softening. "Let's go." She nodded, and they walked out together, heads high, dignity intact. The glass doors swung shut behind them, leaving Michael alone with his regret. He replayed the moment he'd dismissed her, the smirk he'd worn, the sale he'd lost. How could I be so stupid? Outside, David paused by their SUV. "I'm sorry you went through that," he said, his voice gentle now. "But maybe he'll think twice next time." Sarah smiled, resting a hand on his arm. "I hope so. At least we've got each other." They drove off to another dealership, one that welcomed them with open arms and zero judgment. Back at Prestige Motors, Michael slumped against the sports car, the $150,000 beauty, mocking his mistake. He'd lost more than a sale. He'd lost a chance to be better. Never judge someone by their appearance. Sarah could have been anyone, a dreamer, a millionaire, your next big client. And Michael? He's a reminder that arrogance can cost you everything. This story isn't just a tale, it's a wake-up call. True worth isn't in your wardrobe, it's in your heart. What would you have done in Michael's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Life as It Is for more stories that hit you right in the feels. Like if you love a twist that makes justice taste so sweet. Let this sink in. We've all been Michael at some point, sizing someone up too fast. But we can also be Sarah, quietly strong, proving the world wrong. Next time you're quick to judge, remember this story. Respect is free, prejudice isn't.